And joining me now is author and political analyst Dr. James Boyes, also Professor Boyes. Thanks so much for being with us. I want to start with the Democrats. Michael Bloomberg, he is rising through the ranks, but his history is coming out too. A lot of people see him as a Republican in Democrat clothing, and the scrutiny is underway, and it's not all good news. You've got stop and frisk. The Washington Post has allegations of sexist comments. How do you see his momentum?
Well, it's quite remarkable. It demonstrates, I think, that with enough money, you can buy your way into the upper echelons of American political life at this time period. Maybe that's nothing new, but maybe Michael Bloomberg is taking that to the ultimate extreme, quite frankly. You're absolutely right. He was someone who was a registered Republican not so many years ago. So too, of course, Elizabeth Warren. Donald Trump was a registered Democrat. So we're almost in a schizophrenic state of America at this point. But as you rightly point out, there have been some serious allegations made about Michael Bloomberg's past statements, issues he's made at Bloomberg, issues to do with race, to do with gender. And all of these, I think, are going to come out in the coming days. He really has, I think, avoided the major scrutiny that the other major candidates have by avoiding running in Iowa and New Hampshire, by stepping out of Nevada, for example. But I think that as soon as he really appears on those ballots, come on Super Tuesday, for example, he's going to have to answer a very serious series of questions, which could leave him wanting, I think. And if that happens, then that really does leave a major void, I think, in the center of the American Democratic Party.
Yeah, a very good point. When you rise to the top, that's when the scrutiny really begins. I'm interested in Bernie Sanders. There's been almost, in the party and in the media, a dismissiveness about him, too far left. Can't bring enough people to the table. But he's the one who got the popular vote victories so far, and polls extremely highly going forward in these primaries. He's got a very energetic base. Why is there the fearfulness that for some reason he's not the one to take on Trump?
I think that perhaps members of the Democratic Party who can remember back as far as 1972 remembered what happened last time the Democratic Party put a candidate who was seen to be as far to the left as Bernie Sanders did up against a candidate who was seen to be as far to the right as Donald Trump is. Richard Nixon won a blowout election in 1972, and I think there are concerns amongst Democrats in the center of the party and amongst the party leadership who say, hang about a second, Bernie Sanders isn't even a Democrat, for crying out loud. He's hijacking the party. He's taking our party to the left, much further to the left than many members of the Democratic Party want to be. We saw how that impacted 2016 and helped cripple Hillary Clinton's campaign for the presidency. And I think there are Democratic members across the country in states, certainly in the South, for example, where there is a much more generic Democratic base, for example, who quite clearly see Bernie Sanders as a major threat to their ability to beat Donald Trump in November.
No candidate, and it's probably by virtue of the sheer size of the football team, size of the field, but no candidates pulled away convincingly so far. What can Sanders and Pete Buttigieg do to maintain their momentum? How does Biden and Warren climb their way back in?
Well, I think it's difficult to see at this point where Biden and Warren go. If you were looking at how they polled in Iowa and New Hampshire, for example, you'd have to ask, is it merely ego that's keeping them in the race moving forward? One really must ask how they expect to play in states where perhaps they are less favored, in places like South Carolina, in the Deep South, for example, where the Democratic Party's base is much more ethnically diverse. And as a result, I think it's going to be potentially that they've played their best hand so far.
Dr. James Boyes, great to see you. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.